It was late autumn, and my family and I had decided to take a weekend break at a secluded log cabin in the Yorkshire Dales. It had been something we'd been planning to do for a while, but hadn't gotten around to it due to work commitments and other things. There were 5 of us all together, including both my parents, myself and my younger brother and sister. I was 23, and my brother Alex was 17, and my sister Susan was 16. I hadn't been feeling too well for the last couple of days due to a virus I'd picked up at work, so I figured a break in the country would do me good. We arrived at around 5:30 in the afternoon, and were immediately blown away by how beautiful the cabin was. It was the type of cabin you'd see on adverts for weekend breaks, and was surrounded by the most amazing scenery. It didn't take everyone long to unpack and settle in, and I had to share a room with my brother as it was only a 3-bedroom cabin, but that was okay because we usually got on pretty well. My dad had decided that we should all go out to eat that evening, but I said I still wasn't feeling well and asked if he minded if I stay here at the cabin to relax and maybe watch a movie. He said he didn't mind and hoped that I felt better tomorrow. My family got ready and left at around 8 o'clock as they had a table booked for 8:30. To be honest, I was glad of some alone time as my brother and sister could be pretty intense when they were excited. I settled down for the evening and began watching one of those old black and white movies from the 50s. I'd been watching it for about 20 minutes or so when the security light on the backyard came on and lit up part of the living room. I got up off the couch to take a look through the window thinking it might be a fox or a deer or maybe even a badger. But when I looked out, I couldn't see anything moving. Eventually, the security light turned off, plunging the backyard into total darkness. I figured I must have missed whatever had caused it to turn on in the first place and returned to the couch. I just got comfy when the backyard light turned on again. This time I ran over to the window just in time to see something disappearing round the corner of the house. I was shocked to see that it wasn't an animal, but instead looked like the figure of a tall man. I knew my family hadn't returned early because I would have heard the car pull into the driveway. I thought it might be the owner, or even the caretaker, but why would they be sneaking about in the dark like that? I decided to take a look outside each of the downstairs windows but didn't see anybody. I figured it might just be another holiday maker or backpacker taking a late night walk or something. Even though it was kind of creepy, I didn't think too much more about it and continued to watch the movie. Around 10 minutes or so had passed, and I was deciding whether or not to get myself a cold drink from the fridge when I heard a noise coming from outside at the front of the house. It sounded like a large plant pot or something being knocked over. Suddenly, the security lights at the front of the house lit up. I quickly ran towards the front living room window to see if my dad's car was there in case I hadn't heard it pull in, but it wasn't. I was beginning to feel freaked out by everything that was happening. I stood still for a moment thinking about what to do next. There was a part of me that wanted to go outside and take a look around, but I soon ruled that out as a bad idea. Then I heard a strange tapping sound on the front door. It wasn't the normal knocking sound someone would make to get you to open the door. It was more of an intimidating, continuous tapping sound. I walked slowly towards the front door and looked through one of those small spy holes, enabling me to see who it was. I was horrified to see a tall man stood outside facing the door. He was wearing one of those creepy clown masks with fake green hair which covered his entire head. He was holding a large kitchen knife in his right hand and was tapping the blade against the door over and over like he was in some kind of trance. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. What the hell does this guy want? I backed away slowly, trying not to make any noise so he wouldn't realize I was so close to the door. Suddenly the light on the backyard came on again, and I saw a second man stood in the middle of the patio looking straight at me. He was wearing a different but equally creepy clown mask. He was also holding a long knife and was holding it up and pointing it at me in a threatening way. I felt scared to the point where I actually felt sick. I grabbed my phone off the coffee table, but there was no signal. When I looked back up, the man on the patio had gone. I ran upstairs to see if I could get a signal, but it was still dead. My phone was next to useless. Then I heard someone started knocking on one of the windows downstairs. I could hear voices, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I heard one of them laugh. The sound of them talking and laughing sent shudders down my spine. I had no idea what they were planning or why they had even targeted our house. Then, just when I thought it couldn't get much worse, I heard one of them shout, "We know you're in there." I crouched low to the ground, hoping it would make it harder for them to see me in the dark. I then crept towards the top of the stairs to see if I could hear anything. It had gone eerily quiet for some reason. I thought about creeping downstairs to see if they'd gone, but I felt too scared. I'd read about stories like this, but never thought they could happen in such a beautiful and tranquil place such as this. But I guess you never know. I'd always felt reasonably confident when it came to defending myself one-on-one, but I knew that I stood virtually no chance at all against two fully grown men with knives. A few more minutes went by without incident. Then I heard a loud, wood-splintering crack, and I instinctively knew that they'd forced the back door open and were coming inside. My heart was pounding as I hurried across the landing and into my parents' room looking for somewhere to hide. I could hear them moving about and talking, although I still couldn't make out what they were saying because of the masks they were wearing. Then I heard that same creepy laugh again. But what got to me the most about all this was the fact that they were actually enjoying it. I opened the bedroom window and looked out, but it was too high for me to jump out onto the driveway below without doing myself serious injury. I decided to leave it open in the hope it might fool them into thinking that I'd actually jumped and escaped. I heard what sounded like crashing sounds coming from the kitchen, and I was beginning to panic. I was just about to climb into the wardrobe as it was the only place I could see where I might be able to hide when I heard a car pulling up on the drive. I quickly ran to the window and saw that it was my dad's car. He was on his own. I waved at him frantically so I'd get his attention. I didn't want to shout too loudly because I didn't want the men downstairs to hear me. My dad finally looked up just as he was about to put his key in the lock. I tried saying in a low voice that there were two men in the house and to call the police, but he didn't seem to understand me. My heart was almost in my mouth as I watched helplessly as he opened the door and walked inside. Suddenly there was a loud commotion from the kitchen area. I hurried downstairs to see my dad standing on his own in the middle of the living room. The men must have fled out the back door when they heard my dad come in. I told him everything that had happened. He told me he hadn't seen them when he came in but had heard the commotion. We both went outside and my dad called the police. He said that the only reason he came home early was because he had left his wallet in his other jacket pocket and had left my mum, brother, and sister at the restaurant. Who knows what might have happened if he hadn't come home early. My family and I didn't feel comfortable staying there after what happened, and we packed up that same night and went to a hotel a few miles away. We never did find out who the men were and why they'd targeted our house, as they were never caught. We've never taken a holiday in a secluded cabin again, and probably never will.